Good afternoon, everybody. This is the June 5th edition of the Business Relations Strategist Meeting, Career Fair Edition. So I just asked questions as to which of our participants has a copy of their Google Sheets um, list of companies and people that they want to reach out to. And all the participants on the call so far have it. If you do not have it, what I'm speaking about is, let me just share my screen really quickly for people who are just joining us. In the index, if you go Control F and you just type in Sheets or Google Sheets, it's under hashtag business relations and it says Connect Contacts Google Sheets. So how's progress been so far with your outreach? And let's see if you guys have any questions that we can begin with. Hey, Ivan, welcome. Just ask everybody else if they had their Google Sheets list of companies and people they wanted to reach out to. Do you have yours as well, Ivan?
Yes. Yeah, I have my Excel sheet.
Very good. All right. So the floor is open for your questions with your progress. I always share in these calls that the learning is when you get stuck. So let's hear cases that you've sent out requests, you're either being ghosted, being ignored, and we'll actually roll up our sleeves and find out ways around whatever it is that you are stuck with. So who wants to go first? And I'm going to request that you share your screen. So it will be to the benefit of all our listeners and participants. Okay, while you guys are getting warmed up, because it sounds like the group is shy, any general questions? And if there aren't any general questions, what did you learn from the last call and how are you applying it? Who wants to go first? I want to hear from everybody. So we're going to hear from all four of you eventually.
So for me, I saw this recruiter for Bimbo, and they were looking for manufacturing engineers.
Okay.
And I reached out to her, and I make conversation with her. It was like via email. We didn't have like a one-on-one meeting or Zoom or anything. But I made sure that I expressed my interest, but not in a way that I sounded like quote unquote like desperate, if you wanna call it like that. I just say like, hey, like I saw this job posting that you have. I'm really interested in this. I can say below I'm attaching my resume. I believe that with this positions that I've worked before in another manufacturing environment, I can bring some skills that can be aligned to that job, a specific job. If you're interested, please let me know. I'm available to talk via in person or online. And I sent her my availability. And she reached out to me and she told me like, well, like I'm looking for this person that can work full time. And then I answered back, hi, just give me one moment. Sorry, I'm at work. And then,
no worries, no worries.
And then I just basically said like, oh, like I cannot work this summer because I'm still a student, but I would still love to be in contact with you. And she said, yeah, of course. Like, unfortunately, since we're only looking for full time and you're still a student, we won't be able to proceed with this, but we can connect on LinkedIn and we can keep in touch. And I was like, yeah, that sounds awesome. So I connected with her on LinkedIn and we've been talking there since.
Very good. Great initiative, Mariana. I love that you reached out. You started out with email. Before I give comments, let's hear what the rest of everybody who was listening. Chinmay, welcome to the call. The rest of everybody, what were the good parts that you saw in Mariana's share? Thank you for sharing, Mariana, by the way. So I want to hear from the group. What did you get out of Mariana's share? What did she do well?
So in her email, she said she didn't like make it seem like, oh, she's just coming for the position, like the way she responded in her email. Like she imputed what she wanted, but it was not obvious. So like a mix of okay, reaching out to the recruiter, reaching out to the recruiter and also imputing that she's available to work, but in a better form, she mentioned.
So which part did you say was good there, Antoinette?
Yeah, so she was not directly just saying, oh, this, I need this job role or something. It's the fact that she was able to communicate effectively in a manner that also made the recruiter to respond.
Okay, so she communicated effectively, and the proof of that is the other party responded. Mariana, please feel free to give us any additional detail to the points that are being made. So what do you think was specifically in your email that made this person respond?
I think part of it was that I was being polite. I didn't sound like it was something that I had to get and that I had to get a meeting with her.
Mhm.
Like it was not a necessary thing to do. I was just expressing my interest.
Okay.
So that's one thing. Another thing was that I was open to her schedule. As I said, I have like this availability, and I was open to talk to her online or in person whenever it was best for her. So that's another thing. And probably like just like skills. I mentioned like some skills that I have that were probably aligning to that position.
Mhm.
So I think that also made her more prone to respond.
Mhm. So thank you, Mariana. Two things I want to mention from what Mariana said that are the obvious, and you guys already know how to do that. The third one that Mariana, however, mentioned, I'd like to spend a little time on. Which of the two, Mariana gave three, which of the two are already something that you guys know and is expected of you anyway? Let's hear from Shubham, Chinmay. Hey, welcome, Manoj, Ivan, and Antoinette. Which ones were the standard that Mariana said that you guys already know? Don't know? Shubham? You're on top of my screen, so you're the first one to call. I'm just going to go down the line calling you guys. Antoinette already shared. Shubham, what do you think of the three was stuff that you're already expected to be doing? Shubham can't speak. Ivan?
Research
Okay.
about the person.
No, Mariana didn't say that. She mentioned three things. She said she was being very polite. She said she was open to the person's calendar. And then the third one, she said she didn't make it seem like she really needed this. So which of those three is already expected from you guys?
Yeah, not to seem like too like desperate.
Okay, actually, that's the one that I wanted to focus on. The other two, you guys are expected to know it. Thank you, Ivan. So you guys already know that because you're in a sort of asking position, you're normally polite, you kind of cater to the other person. And then the other part of what Mariana said was that she knew that the other party was busy, so she was open to the other party's opening, so she gave her schedule. The third one that Mariana mentioned that wasn't very obvious is the desperation part, okay? I'm currently working with a student at the moment, and we kind of go back and forth. The student isn't part of this communication, but the student, whenever he comes back to me asking about, hey, what do you think of what I'm saying? What the student is doing is it's reeking of desperation. Everything that the student is kind of like asking me to give comment on. And I gave the same comment last week to that student that whenever they were communicating with the other party, just to give you a little bit of background, the student already went through an interview. The student was already told when they would follow up. So he was asking for my opinion on the follow-up messages. So the student had sent a follow-up message, the other party responded, and then the student was asking me for yet another message that they were going to send out. But my observation from having worked with the student, even from last week, is the way that they respond, the way that they're all about this. And you know what that boils down to is mindset. Okay. So what Mariana was talking about earlier with that piece where she didn't seem too eager to get it is the mindset piece. So the learning, the teaching moment for you guys, even if you are desperate, you should not let the other party see that in the way that you speak, in the way that you talk on the screen, because think about it. How attractive you are to be hired if you're in a desperate mode? Okay. Nobody wants anybody who's desperate. So I wanted to bring that to your attention from Mariana's share that whenever you're reaching out to look for jobs, always maintain that mindset. I was just looking at a training today. Actually, I might even share it with this group. Okay. It's a sales training. Okay. But most of what you guys are learning from me are really strategies from the sales standpoint. You guys are actually in a sales position. You're selling yourselves. Okay. So what did you learn from what I just shared? I want to hear reactions from the group. You guys know that my meetings are interactive, right? Nobody got anything out of what I shared? I guess we can end this call. Thank you very much for attending. I guess that is all that we are covering for today.
Hey there, Bunny. I'm sorry, like I joined a bit late, so I'm just kind of catching up on the context of what you're saying. Like, could you just like stay on? Like, could you like elaborate further, please?
So part of what I was sharing was the desperation factor that whenever you are selling yourselves,
Right,
part of what you have to maintain in your interactions with the recruiter
right,
is you come from a standpoint of non-desperation. Okay.
right,
You come from a standpoint of confidence.
right,
Because when they start smelling that you're desperate for this job, you're sending them messages every day. It's like, oh yeah, this is what's going on. This is what's going on. And usually it's all about ourselves. You
right.
get into a mode where you're not attractive at all to the other party that you're hoping to hire you. So the question, Manoj, was,
Yeah.
I want to hear your thoughts on what I just shared.
Yeah, I think it makes sense, like from a standpoint of like, let's say, not even like recruiters, like generally, like let's say in a group of friends, if we have like someone who's always like in a mode of desperation in terms of like asking for favors all the time, or like making it about themselves and being like, can you do this for me, or can you do that for me? Like over time it just for friends as well, like over time it kind of creates a mind block for people that like this person is only reaching out to us when they need something. And it's like, even if you want to help that person, like you kind of like they just fall into the category of they're just here for whenever they need something. And like you said, it's just very selfish in a sense. You like the tone ends up being very selfish in a sense, because they're just thinking about them and not about what the other person is doing. Like for example, in terms of recruiters, like they're like receiving the same text from hundreds of people, and it's like you want to try to differentiate yourself, like by coming from a perspective of like understanding the company in terms of the culture and like what you can learn. I think like to your point, that is more attractive, like than making it sound like you want to work for them, and like making it like I'm available at this time, like what Mariana mentioned earlier, like just being polite and like just approaching it like from a learning perspective, that is more valuable, like than just like messaging them constantly, because it kind of puts you in that block with the other 100 candidates who are messaging them, that like there's nothing for me in this interaction. Like they're just asking me for when I'll get a job.
Very good, Manoj. Great share. Just a distinction from what Manoj was sharing. He was saying to the effect of like reaching out to recruiters only when you need them. In this particular case, we're kind of past that. All right, where the student obviously they opened it up, reached out to the other party. So the part that you're saying that you only reach out to the recruiters, kind of like more happens when you haven't communicated in a while, and then you get back to them. Part of it does apply in your language. Whenever
Right.
you speak to them, you always talk about me, me, me. And it turns out to be transactional at that point. And when it comes to transactional, if they already said they haven't heard back and they're busy or they're waiting to hear back, if you respond to that and you don't respect what they said, that they're still waiting for stuff, that's where the desperation kind of shows up, because they already told you they're still waiting, and then you keep on coming back to them even from the daily standpoint. So some of those actions do not show confidence. They really show desperation. Very good, Manoj. Anybody else? I want to hear from Chinmaye. I haven't heard from her since she started.
Yeah, hi Bernie.
All right, Shubham's
Hi.
going to jump in. Chinmaye, you have a few minutes to think. Shubham, please go ahead.
Okay, so I just wanted to ask one question for this.
Go ahead.
So usually what happens whenever we reach to the recruiters? So the first and foremost thing in our mind is about the job.
Mhm.
So we ask something related to that. So I wanted to ask you that what are the different kind of conversations we can have with the recruiters so that we can be a part like other than other students. So how can we? What are those conversation? I would like to know from you.
Mhm. Actually, I have an answer. So, what are the conversations that you want to have that are not job related? Okay, it's very easy. So, to answer your question, Shubham, don't talk about the job. Okay, so I want to throw it back to the group. What kinds of conversations and where can we find information to talk about not the job? And then I will refine it. If you're in the middle of talking about a job ad that they had, and then that you already, like the example that I gave you, the student already interviewed, they're all on follow-up. So in that case, it's what I like to call transactional. You're talking purely about the job. But part of why you guys are on this call is I'm teaching you the skill of differentiating yourself from the rest of everybody who's doing this stuff transactional. Hey, talk about this job. Hey, I answer back about the job. Job, 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 job. To these guys, even though that's their full-time job, they get tired of it, right? So you need to create a skill where you're talking about something else that's not the job. So I've been giving you examples in previous conversations or even on previous calls. Let's help Shubham out here. Where can you find clues as to what else to talk about from the rest of the students on this call? It's a
Yeah,
way of
post
me checking in to see if you guys are listening to the conversation from previous. Antoinette, please go.
their posts.
Their posts. Do you hear that, Shubham? So if somebody is posting regularly, they may or may not be talking. If they're talking about a job, then maybe not. If they're talking about maybe, it's a new month, it's a new beginning, yada, 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 or they sent something motivational, talk about that. Don't talk about the job. Very good, Antoinette. Anything else aside from their posts?
Maybe their area of interest, like their likes and
Their
their
likes. And where
the
can we
group
find that information, Antoinette?
on the
Where can we
profile.
find that? In their profile. Very good. Shubham, are you getting all of this?
Yeah, but sometimes happen that recruiter already know what you guys are looking for that we know, and you are just elaborating conversation by just taking other stuff. So
if
how
you
could you
come
see?
if you come from that perspective when you approach them,
Mm-hmm.
yes, it will be very obvious what you're doing. However, If you come from business relations from a very authentic standpoint, and that you're trying to get to know another person, it will come like, oh my God, this person, who is this again? Shubham? Wow, he's really interested about me. The questions aren't transactional. He's really thinking of other things. Are you
Okay.
getting the distinction of what I'm pointing out,
Yeah,
Shubham?
yeah, got it.
There's a difference. All right. So
Yeah.
that's why you guys are on these weekly calls, because that's truly the skill that's being taught to you. I'm glad that the light bulb came on there, Shubham. Any other follow-up question to that, or any other comments from the rest of the group before I go to Chinmay?
Yeah, I think since the question was specifically like addressed to like the hiring managers, I think based on what we covered last time, the way we could solve this is by getting in touch with other people in the company, such that there is a way they could reach out to the hiring manager on behalf of you. Because since the hiring managers, like their job is specifically about hiring, so it might not be easy to go into other topics relating to their personal interests. But if you approach other people in the company, that would be easier, because for them you could talk about other things as compared to the hiring managers.
Okay, very good, Ivan. So you're talking about other people. The other thing also that I recommend for you guys, even if it was somebody who posted an ad about a job, and the obvious reaction to that is really to talk about the job, I would even start the personal relationship earlier prior to asking about the job, so that when you do come to a point where it's becoming transactional, you already initiated the conversation that was more personal. I repeat what I just said. So even in a case where it was something that where the person you're trying to reach out to was talking about a job, and then the obvious response or communication would be to talk about the job, if you, having the foresight and studying business relations earlier, would start talking about them personally. So I would research them on LinkedIn first before I even responded to the job ad, and start with something personal. Number one, it differentiates you from all the other job messages that they're getting. And then it has to follow the three principles that I talked about. Number one, it's got to be uber short. Number two, it's designed to get a response. So even if I was talking about something personal, I can still design the way I say it to get a response. Okay. And one of the easiest ways to do that is to compliment them about that. And the third one is obviously not to make any request in your first interactions. Any questions about what I shared so far? Otherwise, I'm going to go to Chinmay. You guys learning anything?
Yes, yes.
Yes,
All right.
Will.
Cool. Ivan and Shubham, Chinmay, what have you learned so far from what we just discussed in this call, or even from your participation in all these business relations meetings that we've had today?
Yeah, hi, Bunny.
Hello.
Hi. So I think mainly how to contact the recruiter or the hiring manager, or maybe any of the person we are looking for to reach out. Like in my case, would be a software engineer. In other cases, maybe some other like professional. So basically, when what I am doing on LinkedIn to reach out is, firstly, I am reaching out to such people whom I have already met in some conference, or any kind of a workshop. So that I'm doing right now. So I have like two contacts which I'm in conversation with. Yet I haven't taken out any like topic regarding our career fair, because I thought it was very early to ask them about it. And I'm just still like building the connection with them. So firstly, I tried reaching out with them on emails rather than LinkedIn, because now that I know them personally, and I have like we have exchanged the email IDs, so that's a very reason. Secondly, I'm trying to figure out like individually what's their extensive background, so that I can ask questions related to that first, maybe build some interactive questions, so that I get a response from them, and not just come to the point directly asking about the openings and all that.
Very
So I
good.
mean, somewhere in the mind they have that thing that I have an intention to get a job at end of the day, but I have to start a conversation like that, not make them feel like the same thing you said, like, we are desperate or something.
Yes. Very good, Chinmay. I like your work to date using email, by the way. Just out of curiosity, did you reach
Mhm.
out to them on LinkedIn after the interaction on email?
No, so firstly, I had sent the LinkedIn request
Mhm.
when I met at the time of the workshop and the session itself. After they accepted the request, maybe I thought they'll have plenty of messages flowing into their inboxes. I directly reached out to them on the mail, so they did respond
Beautiful.
on the email. Yeah.
So one of the things Chinmay is doing is she's reading the situation. This is part of what you're being taught. Okay. Did you hear how she said that she saw this person at a workshop and then she figured that there were going to be a lot of people connecting with them on LinkedIn. So in Chinmay's mind, one of her strategies was to reach out by email to differentiate that. All right. So let's talk about email for a second. Curious what your opening line is in the subject. Okay. The difference between email and LinkedIn is the subject comes into big play because most LinkedIn messages, you can't put a subject on LinkedIn, but most LinkedIn messages are direct. Okay. So Chinmay, I'm putting you on the spot. For the email that got a response, curious what your subject or subject said if it was multiple people. Let's make this a case study.
In my email that I wrote.
Yes, pick one person who responded to
Mhm.
your email, and I want you to share with everybody what you said in the email because they obviously responded, right? So let's dissect it a
Yeah.
little, and I want to give the whole team some tips or whatever. Let's see what did you say in the subject, Chinmay,
So
for
in the
the first
subject,
person?
I said that feedback on this
I
particular
wanted a
workshop that.
verbatim, please, verbatim. Whatever you had in the subject, what did it say?
Okay, so it was a feedback on the recent. I had been to the Microsoft office for a workshop, so I said that feedback on the Microsoft AI workshop, like that.
So your
So that was
subject
the
said
subject.
feedback on Microsoft AI workshop is what you said.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, and you got a response, right?
Yeah, so in the mail itself, I just told them that it's nice
No,
having the
we're
workshop.
not there yet. I'm just talking about the
Yeah.
subject right now. So
Yes.
that's all you said in the subject. I want
Correct.
feedback from the team. Why did
Mhm.
Chinmay get a response?
Because the subject was direct and she talked about something that they had recently attended.
Very good. It was timely. Okay. She just came from workshop and her subject was very timely. It said feedback on the Microsoft event. Okay. Very good. Manoj, any other feedback as to why that worked?
It's irrelevant.
It's very relevant to something that just occurred very recently. Okay. The other suggestions that they give for your subjects for email is it's got to be very, very short, that you should be able to read it when you're going through your list of emails. I should be able to read what you said. Okay. And I will give you guys another tip that Chinmay didn't use, and maybe she'll start using. Always use the first name of your contact. So I could have said Chinmay, comma, feedback about recent event.
Okay.
That helps to make it more effective. Obviously, yours already worked, Chinmay, but it's going to get better if you
Mhm.
start using people's first names on email. Okay. Sometimes I even capitalize all the letters of their first name so that when somebody looks at their inbox, it's very obvious. Their eyes are gonna be drawn to their name and it's all in caps. Okay. I'm giving you strategies to make it even more attractive. Okay. If you guys notice, the conversations about these things, they're usually psychological, they're usually mindset, and they're usually strategic. Questions? Was there a second message, Chinmay, that also worked that had a different subject?
No, this was just an like just a simple conversation, no much questions asked. Maybe I'll message sometime later, a week or after that, week or two.
Very good.
Yeah.
The reason I was asking Chinmay if she connected on LinkedIn also is, let's just assume that the person did not respond to her email. Then she has multiple avenues of communication. Email was the first one she did. And for example, she didn't get a response. And also, I want to reiterate, people also get busy, okay? So there could be a legitimate reason as to why they're not responding, or they got inundated with emails also. So that's why part of the suggestion is to have multiple avenues of communicating with a person. Very good, Chinmay. Any other reactions to that? So very good. We covered email in today's call. Who came late? Chinmay and Manoj. Before you guys came on, I was asking anybody if they had specific cases. Actually, Ivan and Antoinette came to the call last Wednesday, even though I didn't announce it. And we covered a couple of cases from Ivan. Let me ask if anybody has any hot messages that they sent out. Otherwise, Antoinette and Ivan, if you guys could please stand by with the questions that you asked me last Wednesday, so we could share that with the entire student body and the listeners. So Chinmay and Manoj, did you have any specific outreach that you kind of got stuck at, or you have questions, or you're thinking of what to say next in this previous week? Chinmay?
Yeah, Bernie, actually, see, once I have made the connections with supposing any hiring manager that I'm in conversation with, so next step, how do I approach them regarding this career fair or
Perfect.
directly? Yeah.
And I'm glad you asked me that question. I was going to address it when you said it.
Mhm.
If you guys notice, this is the second meeting of this Business Relations Career Fair edition. And the whole idea of what we're doing is we're going to invite some of these people to our career fair. Okay. And I want to repeat what we said in the very first meeting on May 22nd. We said that whether these people that you're reaching out to decide to come to Illinois Tech or not is irrelevant to what we're doing. We're using the career fair as a quote unquote excuse, as a topic to talk to them about. But what you will be getting out of this is you are, as students and eventual job seekers, get the spotlight. You have the opportunity to create these relationships with these people in your favor, inviting them to the career fair. But what's really happening is you're elevating yourselves in the eyes of these people that you want in the companies that they're working for. So, Chinmay, when you mentioned that you didn't know how to transition to career fair, I'm purposely, for this group, not talking about that piece. When we started this, like in 2023, the first group that we talked about, we had the students go directly into career fair. But if you notice, in this meeting, I haven't talked about career fair yet, because what I want you guys to master is the creating of the personal relationships. Kind of like Shubham's question earlier, right? He was like, okay, how do we talk about this? Because I want to make sure that you guys are masters, both from the mindset of your approach. Because think about it. If you're just talking to somebody in general, it's like making friends. So from the standpoint of mindset, from the standpoint of desperation that we spoke about earlier, everything's neutral. You're kind of on even ground. You're just talking about the other person, truly trying to get to know them. And then you hit them with whatever it is that's on your agenda. For this group, that thing for our agenda is the career fair. But for the general group, the usual pivot is into starting to talk about jobs. So the nice thing about this group and the way that you're learning, number one, you create the relationships first. Number two, to Chinmay's question, you're going to pivot into our agenda, which is the career fairs. And number three, if this was a student who was listening to this and not necessarily interested in the endeavor to invite companies to the career fair, you could go directly from the relationship and start talking about jobs for myself. Any questions about what I said before I go into answer Chinmay? Was that clear?
Yeah,
Okay.
yes.
Yes.
Cool. Thank you, Ivan. Let me share my screen. Actually, I have a question for you guys. Would you guys be interested in mindset versus answering Chinmai's question about how do we pivot into career fair? For a show of hands, I want you to raise your hands. Okay, two topics. Number one, pivot into career fair. Okay. And number two, talk about mindset. How many people? Okay, Manoj, put your hands down first. Okay, here's the question. Raise your hands if you want talk about mindset. Antoinette, Ivan. Okay. The rest of the four want to go directly into career pivot. Ivan and Manoj, we can talk separately to that. So let me jump into career fair pivot. So under the index, under hashtag business relations, just a little review for you guys. The third bullet says connect code, connect practice, and connect messaging. What we've focused on for the last few meetings is really connect cold. And I'm assuming that you guys are getting practice with the connect cold because you guys are getting connections either by email or sending out messages. So I'm assuming that everybody's read or practice what's being taught under connect cold. Okay, I'm assuming also that since you've been doing that, maybe some of you have used Connect Practice and practice with some of these people. So let me just open up one of them so you know what I'm talking about. So Connect Practice are just people's profiles who you can practice on that we know that you can practice with. So when we say, please welcome and connect, you could connect with Ashton, Miss Ashton. And then you could practice what you learned in Connect Code. Okay, so Connect Practice 20. These are people that are part of the group, but you can practice the strategies that we're thinking of. Sarvesh was one of the students that I coached even before working at Illinois Tech. I started working in 2022, but I was in touch with Sarvesh. He was a student in 2019, 2020. He and I were in conversation. He found a job. He's an alum now, so feel free to reach out to these guys. So to directly answer Chinmai's question is this part where it says connect messaging. When you guys are starting to make your connections, all of these are suggestions as to what to do next. And about career fair, here's a very specific tactic that you can apply to either pivoting your conversation. After you create the relationship, you can pivot your conversation to the career fair, or you can pivot it to a job for you. So transition. So let me put this in context. It's not about career fair, but let me tell you what's going on here. So business relations. So congrats to the students who've used the holiday to make new connect requests. This is what was happening when this post was made. So it's like me saying congratulations to you guys on this call who are following with this iteration of talking about business relations. You're obviously starting to connect with people. You're getting some results like Chinmai, because she gets responses, or like Mariana, she opened up the conversation. So those were, Mariana's was direct. They dove into it and they spoke about the job directly. Chinmai's case, she met them at the workshop. So she kind of warmed it up. And then now she has a relationship because the other party is communicating by email. So let's just say that they didn't talk about a job. So in this case, advanced students, okay, here's the advanced concept that's being taught to you, who've warmed up their connections and have been going back and forth in either messages or email and want to know how to transition. So it's saying message Y is the transition. So here's the transition state, but let me start here. So you start it by laying the foundation. Okay. If you've been going back and forth, and then you start with a message saying, is it okay to ask a question? Well, obviously you've been going back and forth already. Some of those may have been questions, but when I explicitly say, is it okay to ask the question? I'm actually pausing the conversation and creating the space for what's coming next. So it says start here. It's rhetorical, okay? Because you've been going back and forth. You probably already asked the question. And then it's saying to transition, it sets you apart by, number one, you're asking permission before what you're about to say. And then the response of the other party would be, of course. And then here's where you pivot. In this particular case, what you say next is irrelevant, but for the case that was being taught to the students for this post, we're saying, I'm a business relations strategist at school and I volunteered with a team that calls, oh, actually, this is exactly what we're doing. Okay, I'm a business relations strategist at Illinois Tech, and I volunteered with a team that calls on companies to invite them to our career fair this coming October. Okay, and then you just say, who should I reach out to about the field, in company ABC? Okay, if you were applying for a job, instead of talking about this, where it says, I'm a business relations strategist, and I'm looking to invite you to our career fair, you could say something like, does your company have a referral program? You see the difference? The first example, I was pivoting to the career fair. The second example, I was pivoting to ask about a job for me. But if you notice, I didn't directly say, hey, can you help me find a job? I said, does your company have a referral program? Number one, it's very obvious that I'm looking for a job. And number two, I ask the question indirectly by asking if they have a referral program. And why is that very useful? If they said the company has a referral program, the other party would be interested in helping you, because if you get hired and you stay them for 3 months or 6 months or whatever the company says, they get a cash bonus. If they say no, that the company doesn't have a referral program, the cat is out of the bag. It's obvious. And you already stated that you're looking to them for help for finding a job within that company. Questions about what I shared? Clear?
Yeah.
Lenny,
Yes.
the question, the what you just shared on your screen, right?
Mhm.
It's for students that are working in career fair, reaching out to companies, right?
No, that's you guys. Actually, I didn't read that post before I used it as an example, and it happens to be the answer to Chinmai's question, because that was posted when I was teaching students. They were just like you guys who are here because you want to help out in inviting alum and companies to our career fair. Did that
Okay.
answer your question?
Oh, okay. Students were just helping to invite companies to attend the career fair.
Well, that's why I call this Business Relations Career Fair Edition, because for this specific group, that is the premise on why we're meeting.
Okay.
But outside of the inviting them to the career fair, actually, you could do that up until, we have up until career fair happens. What's going on is we're giving you remember how Shubham was talking about, well, what do I talk about next? That is not about a job. Well, career fair falls into that category. You're not necessarily asking them for a job at the company that you want. You're inviting them to the career fair. So it checks and helps the problem that Shubham brought up earlier in this call. He's like, what else can we talk about? So we just gave you an excuse to talk about something else, even though in the back of your heads, that's why you guys are being strategic also. And you're actually created your Google spreadsheet for the companies that you want to eventually work at. you're being given an excuse to talk about something else other than a job at that company. Make sense, Internet?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Other questions? Chinmay, did that address your concern about the pivoting?
Yes, yes. I'll go through that index once again and check.
Yeah. So you guys are doing a great job because you're creating the relationships first. It falls into the strategy that I was talking about with Shubham earlier, right? Because what I said, if somebody had a job posting, the normal way to respond to that person is just to go directly into the job. The problem with that approach is you just talk job, job, job. It's very transactional. However, with you guys, since you already know the concept of business relations, even though it was an ad for a job, you're going to come the route of speaking about personal stuff so that, number one, you're differentiated from everyone who's responding about the job. And then number two, because you started with a relationship, even if you start getting transactional through that, the back and forth, because you created that personal relationship in the beginning, to Shubham's problem that he talked about earlier, you can go back to that relationship now because you did it ahead. You guys seeing the distinctions that I'm pointing out?
Yes.
Yes.
Good. Other questions? I think I'm going to end today's topic with that nugget so that you guys can, you know, simmer it some more, like we're cooking a good stew, so that you get to digest the information and you get to apply it. So just to summarize what we covered today, you guys are doing great in your outreach. We gave you some strategies out to how to differentiate yourselves again from the other students, and that the reason we call these conversation business relations is we truly lead with the relationships. And then Shubham's question earlier about, like, isn't it kind of obvious if I'm just like saying something just for the heck of saying something? And then we said, well, that's why you truly need to be invested in creating relationships with these people. You guys are kind of like in the early year part of your career, but let me paint a bigger picture for you guys. I'm still in touch with people from my very first job from years ago, and those are truly relationships that were cemented in just truly finding out about the other person. They became my friends throughout all the years, throughout the various companies that I've been through, that they've been through. It doesn't matter, okay? But if there was somebody that I needed something, or I needed to pivot, or there was something that I remember that was hot with them, I can always go back to them. So what you're being taught, is being at the beginning of your careers, is you're being taught this beautiful practice so that as you are growing into what you will become, you already have all these people that you created relationships with. Okay. And that can only further you and everybody that's practicing it. Any final questions? Otherwise, I'm going to end
Yes.
this topic on it. Go
Yeah,
ahead, Ivan.
I was asking, like, in the previous case where you showed the previous post,
Mhm.
where the student was reaching out about the career fair, and you
Mhm.
talked about the referral. So in that case, like the extracurricular part, do you necessarily have to list it and be like, oh, I am a business relations strategist at school?
No,
Does your company have like a referral program or something?
no, you're mixing up the two things that I talked about. Okay. Did you realize that the example I went through are two distinct cases? The first one was a group just like this group. That group that I was sharing that information with were actually business relations strategists who were reaching out to companies to invite them.
Yes. Okay.
And then I gave you an example of saying that, okay, this is an example of a pivot, create the relationship first, and then pivot it to invite the career fair. And in the same discussion, I said, after you create the relationship, you can also pivot. If you're not interested in career fair, you can pivot directly to asking about a job. And that's when I gave you the example of saying, does your company have a referral program? Two distinct cases, but both examples of pivoting from creating the relationship to your agenda. Does it make sense?
Yeah, yes, okay, got it.
So did you separate the two now?
Yes.
So actually, you can pivot to anything at this point. Okay. Remember what I said, the wealth of relationships that Bernie has? If I was trying to reach somebody that I worked with 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I'd do the same exact thing we're talking about. I warm up the relationship again, talk about our relationship, and then I would pivot to whatever it is that I want. Because can you imagine if I haven't spoken to somebody in 5 years and then just out of the blue and I say, hey, Ivan, I need this. Can you help me? Assuming Ivan and I have been connected for 5 years, he hasn't heard from me, and then out of the blue, and I just say, hey, Ivan, help me. It's kind of strange, right? So it still
Yeah.
falls into the category of the relationship first, then your agenda.
Yeah, okay, got it. Thank you.
Good question. Other final questions? All right, guys. I will send out the recording again shortly. Hopefully it doesn't take a week, and then we will see you again next Wednesday. If you have any questions, because sometimes these can be like you're hot on the trail, feel free to send me a LinkedIn message, okay? Because sometimes you can't wait for a week until you get feedback or you need help with what you're saying when you're reading the situation. So feel free to send me a LinkedIn message. Otherwise, thank you for attending today. We will see you next week, same time, same channel.
Thank you, Bunny.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you
Bye,
very
guys.
much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Benny. Thank you.